もうしょっちゅう怪我をしててね。確か骨折も多分10回以上してるし。
Welcome to the lazyfluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese so that you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Yami.
And the topic of the day is healthcare in Japan. Before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and or drop a review on whatever platform you're listening on. And if you feel so inclined, support us on Ko-Fi. We appreciate the support. And with that out of the way, healthcare in Japan. Japan is consistently ranked as having one of the best healthcare systems in the world, and today we are going to talk about why. This is not going to be like a entirely data-driven discussion to every aspect of it and looking at like life expectancy and all that. This is more of a like the lived experience while also looking into like how the system fundamentally differs from the U.S. I'm down to start while talking about the U.S., but I kind of want to have your opinion on how you see the healthcare system working in Japan, and then maybe we can talk about some differences and other experiences after that.
なんか、どっかのエピソードか、何箇所かでなんか言ってる気がするけど、日本は、
We have mentioned like indirectly, but we actually haven't, I double checked, we actually haven't actually talked about how it works.
まあそうね、なんか、メイントピックで話したことないからなんだけど、日本はみんな保険に入らなくちゃいけないっていう、まあ、法律なのかなわかんないけど、ルールがあって、国民皆保険って言うんだけどね。で、まあそのみんな何かしらの保険入ってるから、まあ、少なくとも全額は払うことは少ないと。で、
So just really doing this piece by piece, because this can be quite a lot. When I was looking at this and something公的医療保険? So the 公的being like public, so I'm wondering, does that, when I was looking into this, trying to understand it, is, everybody has to have insurance, like health insurance, like that's mandated, but are all the insurance like systems coming from the government, if that makes sense? Or?
not necessarily, like, not entirely, 全部が、government からではなくて、government と、あと、例えば会社、サラリーマンとかの人にとっては、会社が払ってくれたりとか、あと、民間の保険会社が出してくれたりとかっていうので、個人が自分が出すのは、まあ3割、普通の人だと3割なんだけど、その残りの7割は、自治体っていう、まあ自分が住んでる地域の、まあちょっとコミュニティと、あと、まあガバメントと、あと会社と保険会社の人たちが、まあ、全部もろもろ出してくれて、それが全部で7割、になるよっていうので、まあ、そこを私もすんごい細かいところよくわかんないんだけど、まあ一番大事なのは、個人的に出すのは3割だけっていう感じで、で、この3割出すっていうのも、6歳から、70歳までの、まあ普通の人。で、まあ75歳か。75歳を超えたら、その後期高齢者医療制度っていうのはまた別に変わって、まあ年寄りだから、もう1割だけ、払えばいいよっていう、まあ 10% だけでいいよっていう仕組みなんだけど、でもこの75歳より上でも、まあ普通ある程度の年収がある人は、もう今まで通り3割払ってくださいねっていうので、まあ、決まってて、で、6歳より下は、2割ぐらい、2割払わないといけないと。で、またこれと別に、まあ、障害ある人たちは、何割だっけ ?1 割かなわかんないけど、普通の人の3割より、そう、全然、低い、割合で払います。で、またこれと別に、すごい高い、手術とかあるじゃん。まあ、脳の腫瘍とかわかんないけどさ、そういうのは、高額、療養費制度。まあ、要するに、まあ、もう何百万何千万ってかかるような手術に対しては、ちょっと高いから、まあ、ちょっと、 カバーしてあげますよっていうまた制度が別にあって、で、これも細かい多分ルールはあると思うんだけど、まあそういう制度があるよって感じで、結構、そうね、自分で払う分はアメリカに比べて本当に少ないと思う。
I'm actually curious about the, I'm assuming that's going to be like critical or catastrophic care, I think is the word in the US system. But before that, just for people who weren't following, basically I'm looking at here. So, and now the way you're explaining this makes more sense because I'm, trying to understand a system that's different from the US's. Basically the country or Japan, and there's also, it can be both Japan on a federal scale, or it looks like the local like, your, whatever your governing district is, whether that be the prefecture or smaller below that, they pay a portion of all costs for your care. And what I'm looking at here, it looks like, generally speaking, the country covers 40% of the costs. And then people who either have insurance that's being provided by their employers, or just have private insurance, or I'm not sure. I guess if you didn't have insurance, maybe you don't get this coverage, and maybe that's what happened to me when I was in Japan. But that covers the remaining 50%, and then the 10% of it is expected to be covered by the individual. There are some similarities that with how it works in the US, except for aside from if you're not under like Medicare or Medicaid. I might have messed up the names of Medicare. Then obviously if you're not in those, then you're not getting anything from the government. But yeah, that's the first thing. So that's how it's split up. Basically 5, 50, 40, and then 10 is for you. And then there are 4 different categories where you have when you're below the age of 6, you only have to pay 20% of costs. Your parents. And then if you're the age of 6 to 69, then you only have to take 30% of the burden. And then on top of that, 70 to 74 is a 20%, and that's only 5-year period. And then right after that, 75 up only has to pay 10%. Something I find interesting though is because health insurance is mandated, but it's not actually being done. And it's partially being centralized, but it's not a one-payer system, which is to say, it's not like the government is just paying. This is a whole separate discussion. But theoretically speaking, the most efficient. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
職業によっても、その保険の種類が違うのね。まあみんな保険入ってるんだけど、サラリーマンとか、あと、なんだっけな。船舶船、漁師さんとか、そういう人たちは、確かね、健保っていう、まあ保険に入るんだけど、自営業って自分の、まあ、自分の会社持ってたりとか、まあ自分で、お店持ってる人たちは、また別で、言葉出てこない。保険に入らないといけないから、保険証の色とかも違うんだよ。だからデザインとか色が違くて、だから、この人は会社員かなとか、普通にちょっと分かっちゃうっていうかね、そう。
Yeah, I'm wondering why. So I know, okay, just if you look this up, and it's something I found interesting, that a lot of the lists we're talking about top, healthcare systems 2024, or just throughout the years, it's 3 countries and they're all right beside each other. You have, or, relatively speaking, they're close to each other, or they have very strong cultural ties, history. So there's South Korea, Taiwan, and then Japan. And there's 1, 2, and 3, and the orders can change. And obviously Taiwan has a close relationship with Japan, for those who don't know. And obviously Korea is right beside Japan. And I don't know if they have similar systems to this or not. I know the Korea also did page, but it sounded like it when I was listening to interviews. But it's crazy to me. It does not seem like a coincidence that maybe there's the cultural component as well with something works like this. But I'm just trying to understand, fundamentally, I can see how having everybody having to have insurance, that makes sense. And the government, people paying into the government, some portion, let's say up to 50%, will lower the costs of insurance as a whole across the entire system. But yeah, I'm also wondering, because in the US, what ends up happening with everybody can have private insurance thing, or everybody has to do private insurance, is you have a smaller pool of people, because people like me who aren't even insured, who aren't in the pool, who are healthy. Like you ideally want me paying. You want me paying because I'm younger, right? You want me paying because I'm younger, and you want older people who can't pay, who basically use more insurance than they're able to afford, to be subsidized by the younger population. But for me, I can't afford it at the moment, which is like so it's a really weird, funny situation the U.S. is right now, where like, we talked about earlier the happiness of the elderly, and the U.S. system at the moment is like, well, the elderly are doing well, they're the happy ones, and the youth cannot financially support them, but then also insurance is kind of based on the youth supporting the elderly. Japan's obviously in this current situation, but I mean, this has all been like a little technical. I want to ask you more about what is your like personal experience, like how, oh, sorry, go ahead.
ちょっと待ってね。アメリカのさ、保険っていうのは、もし入った場合ってどれくらい払わないといけないの？
It's not based on percentage. That's the thing. And costs are negotiated between that's why I find you interesting, like the 10%, 20%, 30%. It gets really complicated. There's a really good video. What is his name? He used to be on Polygon. I'm subscribed to him, but he made a 30-minute video explaining the healthcare terms in the United States. If you look at like a healthcare explanation, whatever, it's a very funny video that goes into it, but it's very convoluted. You can have multiple insurances, to be clear. One, and right, and your job a lot of times provides insurance, but you can have two. And what your insurance it covers depends on that different insurance, and it also depends on the type of plan you get. And then depending on the type of plan you get, you'll have different amounts of, they're called copays, where you'll pay a certain amount and then your insurance will pay a certain amount. And then there's things called deductible. It's a whole thing. It's a whole. It's not straightforward at all. People who have insurance get confused, and I had a portion when I was younger. When I was covered by like my parents' insurance, where I had like two different insurances, and you'd still walk up paying a bunch, either way. So,
もし複数持ってた場合ってさ、どっちもからお金が出るってことか。
Yeah, but that still doesn't mean that you're not paying. It's very convoluted. Okay. I have stories about my experiences in like with Japan's insurance system, but I want to hear yours first, because I've actually not, and I know you've gone through actually a bunch of injuries. Actually, I know that. I'm curious. Obviously not recently, but like, what has been your experience with like healthcare in Japan, like visits and things of that like.
私?
Yeah. Well, I know you've been injured, but maybe that was too far long ago for you to remember.
私の場合すっごい特殊なんだけどさ、本当に特殊で、ちっちゃい頃よく、すごく活発な女の子でございましたので、もうしょっちゅう怪我をしててね、確か骨折も多分10回以上してるし、大きい怪我とかだと、pelvic bone、ジャングルジムから落ちて、折ってとか、あと、普通にだと、twisted my ankle で、I have torn, yeah, ligaments, 靭帯を5回とか切ったんかな。けど、私のお父さんが、オーソピディストだから、
そうだね。
そう。だからそういう、なんていうの、オーソピディックの、怪我だったら全部自分の、my dad が全部直してくれたから、I didn't pay なんだけど、でも、他の怪我とかに関しては、普通に病院行ったりとか、してたね。で、今は大学生なんだけどさ、ちっちゃい頃は親と一緒に、クリニック行ったりするけど、今、大学生だと自分で病院行かないといけないじゃん。で、そう。何かしら問題あったとき、日本っていうのは、患者が、どの、クリニックに行けばいいかっていうのを、選べるのね。
You should talk about the family doctors. I forgot, that's something I noted. I forgot I want to talk about that.
そう。だから、とりあえず、最近、咳が止まらないなとか思ったら、自分で、respiratory internal medicine、呼吸器内科行けばいいんだなって思ったら、本当にフラッとそういう呼吸器内科行ったり、あと、 ガイナコロジー、OBGYN みたいなと思ったら、そういうレディースクリニック行ったりとか、本当に自分でパッと行って、パッと帰れるみたいな感じなのね。
And do you have any problems with, like, where you have to wait a long time? So one of the criticisms that many people have around, obviously this Japan system's it's like private, public, or sort of like hybrid. But have you ever had any issues with, like, you want to get in somewhere, but you have to wait 2-3 weeks for surgery or something like that?
もちろん。なんかさ、フリーアクセス、患者が自分で、どのお医者さん見るか選べるっていうのは、便利なんだけど、その分お医者さんの負担も大きくてさ、すごく患者が来ちゃうから、本当に。
Oh, hold up. You might be understanding something quick. So, that's interesting. Okay, so what I'm referring to is a situation where, obviously, if you're looking for a specific doctor, right, there's only one doctor. So one doctor can only do what he can. But there's a situation, that you sometimes can experience in Canada where it's not even about getting one doctor, it's getting any doctor, just to be able to deal with, a given situation. So I'm wondering, like, do you feel like if somebody got injured, they would just have to wait a long time to get any sort of help?
どういうこと?
If they weren't very focused on getting one doctor, if that makes sense. They're like, if they're like, no, it doesn't have to be this person. I just want to get in. I need help.
だからエマージェンシー行くってことでしょ?
I mean, it depends, right? Sometimes you need a specific surgery, but you can wait. Like you need to get, I don't know, something removed.
だから、わかった。例えばさ、自分が内科だと、違う。自分が、例えば、ちょっとチェストが痛いと思って、カーディオバスキュラーの、インターナルメディスンね。だから、心臓内科、循環器内科って言うんだけど、に行きますと。で、ちょっと検査したんだけど、俺心臓大丈夫だなってなった時は、見てくれたお医者さんが、もしかしたらこれ心臓の問題じゃなくて、肺の問題かなpulmonary の問題かなって思ったら、respiratory internal medicine の呼吸器内科の先生に、紹介して、こういう患者さんがいるんですけど、心臓は大丈夫だったんですけど、ちょっと、もしかしたら、肺に問題があると思うので、そちらでちょっと、検査して、ちょっと診断してくださいっていけますかみたいなのを、紹介するって言うんだけど、そういうので、ドクターが、他の領域のドクターに、センドしたりとか、っていうのも本当に多い。
Okay, so that's super. This is a perfect time to segue into family doctors. So, family doctors, what are they? Well, to be clear, first, for those Americans, they don't exist in Japan. So what are they? So family doctors in the U.S. it really depends. And I know historically there have been literally family doctors were just your family's doctor. Where more wealthy families could have that and they would keep track, of your whole history over time. But I think for most people, how it works is, you have local clinics in your area and those have doctors who are, I think are they called general? I can't remember what the technical term general. There's a term for them, but they're not called, I think, family doctors specifically. But you go anytime you have any problem really that you want to go to the doctors for, you go there and then they do a general checkup on you and then you get a 15-minute meeting. They ask you what's up. And then, the idea is one, that you always have one consistent place you're going to regardless of what happens to you. So it's an easy way to streamline all your medical records. Two, assuming you're living somewhere for a long period of time, that actual same doctor will be able to see you for a long period of time. So they'll be able to tell, changes in your, medical history over time. And then three, it also allows you to prevent having to waste money on more expensive, specialist time or surgery. You go and mess up, go you're saying Japan where you go to cardiologist and you didn't even need to go there, or whatever. And so it allows the expertise of, the doctor off the bat to hopefully, one, you could give you preventative options or just sometimes exercise and getting, Tylenol is all you need. But in Japan, they don't have this system. I'm curious as to why, which I want to talk about, but do you feel, have you encountered any problems, or do you wonder why there's not like family doctor system? To me, although I'm very critical of the U.S., like the healthcare system, and we're not even close to the top 3 where Japan is, the family doctor part does make total sense to me, and it has led to like saving a lot of like potential money, especially because I've been injured so many different times. And a lot of times, like, yeah, you could do this or whatever, and then actually talking to a doctor is helpful before walking in. Like the second you walk into a specialist office and you have anything that could be treated, they're gonna want you to treat you, if that makes sense, right? Like, yeah. And so, yeah, what are your thoughts on family doctors?
まあ、さっきも指摘してたように、そうね、日本ってファミリードクターの、まあ、制度がないからさ、まあ、患者が自分で、自分がここの科じゃないかなって思うところに行くじゃん。で、また違う科に行ったりとかっていうので、なんだろう、普通のクリニックが、みんながファミリードクターみたいなこと、なんか中途半端にファミリードクターっぽいことをして、で、わかんなかったら違うところに回すみたいなので、なんだろう、医者の負担がめちゃめちゃ大きいね。なんか日本ってワンステップ踏んでから、そのスペシャリストみたいな感じだからさ、なんで、アメリカよりワンステップ多い気がする。まあ、患者が自分自身で選ぶっていう、もう、ところってあんまり確かにいらないけど、でも、
How common is it that you see the same doctor more than once?
まあ、それは例えばさ、決まった疾患。
Unless you have the same, obviously if you have like a chronic illness or something.
あれだよ。例えばさ、まあ、糖尿病、ダイアビリーって分かってる人は、もう糖尿病を見てる、まあ、クリニックにずっと通って薬だけもらうとか、フォローアップするとかって感じで、で、なんて言うとしたんだっけ？あ、さっきなんか言おうとしたけど忘れちゃった。
Well, I have a question. So, what happens with your medical record and your medical history? Every time you get any illness at all, you need to do a full transfer of your information to that clinic?
よくあるのが、まあ、例えばさ、一つのクリニックに行くじゃん。で、このクリニックじゃ見られませんってなった時に違うクリニックに行くじゃん。で、一応見てくれた医者が、その患者さんのレコードを、全部書いたやつを、違うまた、紹介した先の病院に送るのね。この患者はこういう理由で、こういう検査が出てて、で、そっちの病院で検査してください。あ、知ってる。
Before that.
知ってる。起用歴って言うんだけど、だからそういう全部の情報が、違うクリニックに行くんだけど、でも、紹介された病院は、一応確認とかのためとか、あとプラスアルファで何か漏れてることないかなっていう、まあ、確認のためにもう一回聞くのね。大体。usually。だからもう本当に何回も、だから例えばもうすごく大げさに言うけど、もう本当に珍しい病気で、もう5個ぐらいクリニック回るっていう人の場合は、その5回も同じ、ストーリーを、違うドクターに、言わないといけないのね。でもこれって、
so you don't actually have your whole record being sent between like clinics?
違うんだよ。それは全部送られるんだけど、でも、その違う領域のお医者さんが見たらさ、なんか漏れてるところ見つけられたりとか、あと、なんだ、聞き方によってもさ、患者さんが自分から、言えるようになることとかも、まあ、あるじゃん。新たに。で、まあ、たまにさ、お医者さんもちょっと、なんていうの、高圧的ちょっと、なんていうんだろうね。バスイーな感じで、接しちゃうと、患者さんも、ちょっと、インティミデート、ちょっと、なんだろう。萎縮しちゃうくて、あんまり言えないとかさ、あるじゃん。だから、なんか、そう、なんて言うんだろうね。セカンドオピニオンを聞くときとか、にも、
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
のために。
But I was mainly saying that like that's kind of the point of like if someone has your medical record, you don't need to re-say every part of your history to them and explain it like 3-4 times. Why don't you think? Do you think Japan would benefit from having a family doctor system? And why don't you think they don't? I think historically, family doctors did used to exist in Japan, if I remember correctly. Like in not in the same sense you go to a clinic, but in the same sense like a wealthy family could have a doctor, that like managed over an estate or something. I can't remember directly, but I think that was a thing. And so I'm wondering, why do you think there's a benefit to the system, and why don't you think Japan has, family doctor?
日本ってさ、さっきも言ったように自分でさ、お医者さん選べるからさ、より高度な医療を、みんな受けたいじゃん。ね。この先生すごいってなったらみんなそこ行きたいじゃん。だから、なんて言うんだろうね。日本人って結構専門性を意識していて、なんか、その手術を20年以上やってる人とかに任せたいから、なんて言うんだろうね。そういう、家庭、なんだっけ。ファミリードクター、家庭医療だっけそう。とか、ちょっとあんま発展してこなかったんかなっていうのは思ってて、でも最近なんかちょっとずつムーブメント始まってて、なんかプライマリーケアって言うんだけど、ちょっと、GP とかファミリーメディシンに似たような感じのシステムはある。そう、あるっちゃあるかな、
Oh, there is?
うん。けどそんなポピュラーじゃない。し、ちょっと中途半端って感じ。そう。
So people are used to... Okay, so is this a recent thing? Like a recent development?
ちょっとずつ近年ね、だんだん力入れてるっぽいけど、でもやっぱり、なんて言うんだろうね。ちょっと振り分けてるだけになっちゃってる現実もある。その患者さんをただ病院でなんか振り分けて、この科じゃないかっていう。なんかちょっとね、ちょっと中途半端な。
That's interesting. So you're saying like literally there might not be a like logical reason. It's more of like a cultural reason. Like the people, the people who want to be doctors decide to specialize because there's the most, prestige around being specialized, and that's just across the entire country. Therefore, you're left with no general practitioners, or at least maybe a few. I want to talk about because I have an experience I've talked about once before, but we've also there's one of our German or I guess not, I don't really know them, but an acquaintance of a friend or a friend of a friend, and to you I guess a friend of a friend as well, which you had to go directly see about like what my opinion like have the Japanese experience. And so I might sound critical of the family doctor thing, which I do think is a little weird, but I do have experience. One time going to a family doctor where I hit my eye in a video that has not been released, and my eye is completely healed at this point. I don't know, maybe I'll release it at some point, where I hit my eye I was carrying a bike over my head for reasons, and also I was also on a hike at the same time. Don't even worry about it. And my foot slipped to the left and my handlebar fell and hit my eye. And then I continued. I continued finishing that video, and I made it part of the script of the video, actually. But anyways, after that, IMU was like saw my eye, and I was like, "Whatever's all good." I got all the footage, and she was very concerned and said I should go. And I was like, "Oh, it's gonna be a whole pain. It'll take too long to go in." And what ended up happening was, I think eventually one of IMU's friends was like, "This is ridiculous. You got to go see somebody." And then I was concerned it'd be a whole long thing, especially because like, oh, this is an eye thing. I know that's a specialty. If this was the US, I'd have to make an appointment. Who knows if I could get in? And I think it was like 5 p.m. And was it a Saturday? It was a weekend.
Saturday.
It was literally, yeah, it was a weekend. Like on 5 p.m. was Saturday. And we're to be clear, we're in somewhere fairly rural, in Japan. And so I was like, nah, no shot. And no, I was immediately able to get in same day. And then I walk in, I see that like episode 19 of the season 6 of, no, it was episode 21 or something of season 6 of, no, it doesn't have to go long. Well, anyway, some episode of season 6 of Boku no Hero Academia, My Hero Academia. I remember that distinctly because offices in the US always have such shows that I'm not interested in. I'm like, bro, they're playing the new episode of My Hero in this doctor's office. I walk in, it's playing for 2 minutes, and then I immediately get called up go in, they do an eye evaluation, like, 3 different things, tests. I talk to the doctor directly, and then they prescribe me medication, and without insurance, and then they say, oh, you have insurance? I'm like, no, I don't have insurance. And they're like, oh, okay, it's gonna be more expensive. I was like, oh, no. And then the total price ended up being around, like, converted around like $60, I think, if I converted it into USD. And I was like, and literally to the face of the worker, I was like, oh, thank God it's so cheap. And she gave me this confused look. And I just remember I was like, oh, I didn't want to be offensive, but it was literally what I was thinking, because I was like, in my head, I was like, oh no, I'm screwed. I don't have insurance in another country. And I was like, and then now it's literally the point. I don't have enough time to talk about it, but I've talked about it before with me and this everlasting cough I've had at the moment, where I was half considering just waiting until I go to Japan next, so to hit up a clinic, so I just don't have to spend to lose money on the US system, because it's so expensive.
それは、なんて言うんだろう。クリニックだったから、まあ1万円ぐらいで済んだんだけど、私の、まあ、German friend の friend が、まあ、エマージェンシーに行った時、まあ、エマージェンシーだったっていうのもあるんだけど、まあ、彼はちょっとチェストペインがあって、で、もうすごいパニック状態で、もう、なんて言うんだろう。もう本当に緊急、なんか、はい、なんか、しかも、チェストペインってさ、もう、なんて言うんだっけ、心筋梗塞まあ、how do you say? 心筋梗塞。stroke じゃなくて。
No, it's
heart attack.
Well, he thought he had a heart attack.
そう。で、ちょっと、しかも聞いた話だと、なんか、症状が心筋梗塞っぽかったんだよ。だから、それはエマージェンシー行った方がいいんじゃないってことで、私も、まあ、日本語喋れないからついてたのね。で、まあ、本当に、he did, まあ、エコー、ウォーターサウンドと、あと、なんだっけな。blood testing? 採血、をやったのかなで、全部込み込みで59,000円ぐらい。
Right, hold up. And he went to a Tokyo hospital, right? Too. So this is also like the top of the top, right?
まあね、そう。で、University Hospital で、まあ、エマージェンシーだったから、まあまあ、その、エマージェンシーってちょっとプラスで多分、もう、ベースが15,000とかするのね。何も、まあ、行くだけで。だから、まあそういうのもあってなんだけど、じゃあ合計でも6万ぐらいかかってたから、まあ結構割とするじゃん。そう。だから、
well, hold up. So all of the Americans listening here are like, wait, only all that at a university hospital and you only have to pay around $450 was probably what it converts to.
It was nothing.
That's actually super cheap. Well, no, I don't think you understand. I wish we had more. Oh man, this topic's so interesting. Sometimes our first topic's so interesting. I'll just say that just to get, if you get injured on this, the street, and you want to call an ambulance, you can be charged over, I think it's like over $1,000 for that in the US.
Ambulance は使ってない。walk in.
Yeah, no. But I'm just saying, but that's free in Japan, right?
いや、だけど、そのね、今、なんか、アンビュランスを、you have to pay にしようっていう動きはなんか出てる。だって、なんかタクシー代わりに使う人もいるから、そんなのいや、もう ridiculous で、やってらんねえよって感じで、有料化しようみたいな。
Maybe we'll do a different episode just on prices, because that's definitely a fun conversation there. But, yeah, let us know if you've ever experienced getting injured in another country. I'd be very curious to hear like how that healthcare situation went. Yeah, let us know. 戻りました。
We're back.
3月だから、これは桜の季節かな。今4月かな。
It's almost 4月。
で、どっちが桜の季節なの？どっちも？
Usually, also, I'm going to talk about how late it is this year to see Sakura. So last year, how do you say, Sakura bloomed 2 weeks earlier than this year. So, like, right now, if it was last year, it's like full bloomed at this point.
満開。
But, this year, you don't, well, yeah, you see a couple of Sakura are, starting to bloom, but not like fully.And for 満開季節, it would be, when is it? April 4th, in Tokyo. So that's like 5 days later than the average year. And I guess the reason was is because it rained a lot this year in March, and also the temperature was not quite warm for Sakura to bloom. So maybe that's why. Yeah.
うん。で、最後になんか咲くところはどこ？
I guess
その
Hokkaido.
東京は北海道。で、北海道は、なんか私5月日本に行くから、なんか私ギリギリ間に合うかな？それとも、
No.
できない。
Oh! In Hokkaido, they will have
5月
Sakura in May 11th.
あ
But you have to go to Hokkaido.
でも間に合えない。ギリギリでも。残念。
Why? You're coming in
なんかその後。
Mid.
そうそうそう、その後
And
来
then
る。
it says like, mid-May まで。
もしかして
But
間に合える。
you're not going
北海道は
to.
遠いね。そう。
Yeah.
うん。遠いね。行ったことはあるけど。今回はしないね。よく花見するのちなみに。そうそうそう。昨日かな花見しに行ったじゃん。
Oh yeah, yesterday I went to Tokyo to see some sakura. But sadly, only, had like tsubomi. How do you say tsubomi? Like
The bud.
Yeah. Only, I guess there were some flowers started to bloom, but not like, just like little portion. And the rest, was still buds. So yeah, I couldn't see like the whole tree, blooming. But yesterday, it was 25 degrees in Tokyo, so it was pretty hot, like summer. So I guess we can see Sakura very soon.
なんかいつも思うのは桜はもちろんなんか日本の特徴的な花だけど、私はなんか3回、これは 4回目になるかな。日本に行くけど、まだ見てない。で、日本人もなんかその時期が正しければ、その問題がなければ、なんか1日だけなんか2日ぐらい見れるじゃん。ってことはなんか日本人にもなんかこういうなんか花見を楽しむのは難しい。でももちろんアニメにとってはいつもなんか私が思うのはその春学期の始まりで桜がたくさん咲いていて、でなんか主人公はなんかオープニングモノローグみたいな、読語みたいなよくあるんだけど、でもなんかどれぐらい花見というか桜経験したことあるの？なんか毎年
What? Yeah.
毎年なんかわざと花見しないといけないみたいな、そういうことが多いの？
My so like you guys know, I like running, so I just go for a run along the river, and then you can see Sakura. Is that what you mean? So I don't go to do
その中そう、それはちょっと違うね。でもそれは花見に入るかな。走ってるから花見。
I'm just looking at the flower, so 花見。I don't know.
でもなんか景色をわざと楽しむことで、より深くなんかが与えられるんじゃない？
Also, I don't have many friends to hang out
そんな
to
こと
do
ない。
hanami with, so
それは嘘。でも、昨日やったのに。
Nah,
やろ
we
うとしたのに。
tried. But that was not like hanami, it was just like walking around where sakura trees are. So,
それは花見じゃないの？
I don't know. And the hanami to me is like spreading
ピクニック？
a blue sheet, a tarp, on the ground, and then have some like picnic kind of stuff, drink under sakura tree. So that's hanami to me. So like just walking around is not hanami to me.
でもそういう花見よくやらないってこと。 なんか私めっちゃやりたいけど、その3月ぐらいに日本に行ったことないから、なんか難しい。そう、4月、3月行ったことない。2月、1月。そうで、今回は5月から初めて。夏、マジで楽しみにしてる。夏一番好きで。みんな知ってるかも。でも本当に夏好きな人なので、なんか日本人がよく言うのは、なんか日本に来るなら夏に来ないで、みたいな。春か秋かな。でも私にとっていつもなんか、ここ中から夏に行きたかった。その、夏祭り楽しみたい。味わいたい。経験したい。
But to me, the weather is better in America. Like in America, it was less humid.
全言撤回しろ。
カラッとした、なんていうの、hotness だけど、in Japan, it's like humid, sweaty, like super scorching summer, scorching hot summer.
でしたっけ
So, yeah, to me, American summer is better.
いや、絶対多分、テキサスや、アリゾナに行ったら、まあそんなに多湿のところじゃないけど、まあどうなんだろうね。私なんかもちろんバイアスがすごくある。パナマの天気めっちゃ好き。で、なんか、汗をかいてることによって、なんか運動してるって感じがする。
ねえ。It sucks!
でもわからないの、その、走る、なんか、ランニング人としては、そういうなんか、何もやってないのに、運動してるみたいな雰囲気になる。それ最高。めっちゃ楽しみにしてる。ちなみに沖縄に行ったことある？
I haven't been.
海に行ったことある？日本の。
Is Tokyo Bay counted as umi? Oh, I've been to
東海に近い海は一番汚いでしょ？江ノ島はどこ？で、泳いだことある？
ね
と、やらないといけない。マジで最高。そのなんか、その高温多湿のところで、その泳ぐは、なんか、最高。そのパナマで、なんか初めて経験して、何回もやりたい。なんか沖縄、なんか今回5月から、まあ夏の方、日本に行くんだけど、それが目標の一つ、沖縄に行くこと。まあ、多分行けないけど、私は少なくとも行く。わかんない。もし、その夏休みじゃなくて、夏祭り、なんかすごく日本の独特、なんか行かないといけない。そのすごくおすすめがあったら、ぜひぜひ教えてください。あみは多分そういうことにあまり興味がないかな。
I mean, I'm interested, but like, my family doesn't go to the kind of like festival.
なんか、アニメの主人公になりたいんだよ。そういう。それが唯一の目標。
Yeah, you can do whatever you want.
そう、浴衣を着て歩き回りたい。で、花火見たいんだよ。何でしたっけ？まあ、花火という映画見たことないと思うんだけど、何でしたっけ？竹の北市竹のわかんないけど、私の好きな映画の一つ。そう、北野武の映画めっちゃ好き。花火。うん。まあ、そういうおすすめがあったらぜひ教えてください。はい。And we're back with the final section. And if you made it to the final section, that means you send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com with a comment, question, language related, and or otherwise. And I think I've just gotten used to the fact that there will be an unlimited amount of comments that I can't respond to all of them. So we'll figure something out. And this week we have a new commenter. The name is Riza. And this was actually about our JLPT podcast episode. I think you guys are thinking too much about this. A lot of people take the test to study abroad/work abroad. You might see more people brag and can't speak, but actually there are more people out there who have certifications and they speak quite good Japanese/English. They just don't really post about it online. Thank you for the comment, Riza. I believe maybe this person didn't listen to it fully, but I think I said that. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I agree completely. I think this whole test only approach. I mean, for Japanese, to be clear, I don't know how true that is. But in terms of Japanese people taking English tests, but for the reverse, a lot of people that I met who were taking those tests are either like come from the Asian side, so they know the kanji already, and they get like full immersion Japanese classes, and they speak well. Or they're like Japanese majors and stuff, so they have a holistic, writing, reading, et cetera, et cetera. But what are your thoughts about that?
なんか、JOPT 取る人たちってさ、日本で働きたいから取るんでしょ？日本で働きたいとか、自分のラングエージスキルって試したいとかさ。JOPT を使う理由、JOPT をそのジョブハンティングに使う、なんていうの？普通の会社？例えばアポとかに、就職するときにさ、JOPT 取得とか絶対書かないでしょ？
Oh, no, if you wanted to work in Japan, you have to have, you need,
違う、ジャパンじゃなくて、いいや、in America で、not in Japan.
Well, if I'm being honest, maybe this is just me, because I think it's the reason you take it is two things. One, personal journey, but it's the notion that you just want to be in Japan and you realize it's beneficial, basically. Because a lot of people are like me, where you realize that ultimately you don't actually want to work under a Japanese company. You just want to be in Japan. But, getting the JLPT gives you options. Like, I haven't used the N1 at all, other than, having, and I'm happy I accomplished it, I guess. But I haven't actually, in my head, it theoretically was to work in Japan. But then the more I thought about it, I'm like, bro, that sounds painful.
なんかさ、JOPT を取ってる人は、すごく、なんて言うんだろうね。ジェニュインにさ、日本語頑張りたいとか、日本で勉強したいとかさ、あると思うんだけど、日本人が英語を勉強する場合ってね、二手に分かれるんだよね。本当に英語、好きでとか、あと、海外で、仕事するとかっていう人にとっては、TOEIC とか TOEFL とか取って、仕事に必要だから、それを、頑張るっていうのと、あともう一つは、ただただ英語の資格を持ってるだけで、なんか就職の時に有利だからっつって取る人がいるから、なんかそこは違う点だと思う。
I kind of find in my head, I'm imagining the version of this that exists. Obviously, Spanish is an easy example of this, but I like to think that, you have somebody from Oklahoma or, just a Texan, a country boy maybe, who he's just not interested in Japanese, but he has to learn it, and he just has a basic, he's like, I don't know, I find it funny them taking like a speaking test. Konnichiwa, boku wa tom desu. I don't know. It's so foreign to me, but I find it funny because I think that's what's happening with Japanese, where you have people who have to learn a language that's so like foreign to them and they don't care about it, but they're still like going through the motions. But yeah, I think we agree with you though. I mean, except for I don't think having, I've never personally experienced the quite good English speaking other than Ayami. That's it. And either that or they were literally like, there was some reason, like they're basically just American culturally, or they lived in America. But yeah, so Ayami is an exception. Okay. Next is about, I was really confused about something, and it was Israel being so high in the happiness rankings, and our fellow, or it's called MVP, commenter and Israeli, giving us a perspective on that, and I found it very interesting. So here it is. First, I will address the logic defying data regarding Israel, which also had me stumped. So I dug deeper. So it turns out the yearly happiness score is based on a 3-year average because the aim is to establish a metric of stability and satisfaction with life. Another thing they measured is positive and negative feelings. And this metric is Israel is at the 123rd place in positive feelings, and it rose from 119th to 60th in negative feelings. But it's still weird. So my explanation is as follows. Israel is a very small and young country based entirely on ideological immigration, meaning people, mostly Jews, come here because they actively want to live particularly in the Jewish state. That fosters a strong sense of purpose, which is important when it gets rough. Its small size makes it kind of a tribal community with high mutual responsibility. So while the onset of the war was horrifying and traumatizing, it also saw a huge war of volunteerism and unity. All these contribute to a sense of contentment. Also, the economy is still strong. Last but definitely not least is the anti-democratic and fast reforms the current government is pushing will only show their impact in the upcoming years. So meanwhile, people are enjoying a surface-level perception of normalcy. To tie this in with the main topic, purpose, meaning, and strong community ties go a long way to instill a sense of happiness even when things are shit. In developed countries, hyper-capitalism and individualism soar. That usually brings about the disintegration of the above and leaves space for the existential dread to surface. That's my take. And Finland, I don't know. So I don't know why they're so happy, but they're also at the top of the suicide list. So there's that. I know that Finland wasn't the main conversation here, but I do always think about my take on those things, and it's probably not the academic take at all, is if you find yourself marginally not happy and literally everybody's happy and you're the number one happy place, that would make me so depressed. If I'm like, everybody around me is like, hey, life's great. I love life. And you're like, I had a bad day today. And then you get, paper comes out, you're number one. You are the happiness. It doesn't get better. You know what I'm saying? It's like God coming down and saying, you're like, I'm depressed. Is there anything better for me? Oh no, you have it the best. You're the best. And you're like, oh God, I'm still depressed. You know what I'm saying? So that's my logic. What were your thoughts on her explanation for sorry, go ahead.
フィンランドとか、スカンディネビアンのさ、国とかって、社会制度が整ってるからじゃないの。その税金が高いけどさ、その分、学校とか医療費払わなくていいとかだからさ、多分そういった面もあるし、あと聞いたけど、スウェーデン人って本当にみんなにナイスらしい。その、エクスチェンジスチューデントでスウェーデン人の人が来たんだけど、本当にあの人たちね、めちゃめちゃみんなにナイスで、いつも明るい感じで、すごくいい人柄だったから、それが結構アベレージな人なんじゃないかなと思った。
I am wondering if there is what she was talking about, like, with countries developing and then they're becoming individualistic. I'm surprised there aren't examples of, or maybe I can't think of them, of wealthy country, but it also feels very, obviously there, Israel could be in that category. Actually, it's fairly, developed, and I think there's a sense of unity. So maybe that makes sense. Maybe because it's like wealthy enough and it has a sense of unity. Because most of the ones I can think of, whether it be in Europe, you even mentioned Sweden. From my understand, you're still not like, you have harsh separations between you and outside your family. You still, and so in Japan, obviously that's the case as well. I honestly, I don't know. Japan, it always confused me. It seems constantly in conflict with itself. Where I would think Japan would actually have, because it had literally thousands of years of. Japanese people say it all the time. We're from a village. We're an island we lived in a village. Like we had to, our neighbors. It's all that. But I'm like, where's the village? I know people never talk to each other. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no relationship between neighbors. Unless you're in the Inaka, I guess, and you're in like rural Japan. But yeah, thanks for the insight on, like, obviously I only know so much about the Israel situation, but I definitely think, and there was another comment that Shawcox whenever I made, but just time, and we was talking about how, like, income necessarily, or like how developed a country is doesn't necessarily correlate with happiness. But I guess for me, when I agree with that, but when I see, like, constant problems happening everywhere and, like, war and stuff like that's where I'm like, when I looked at the list. There's one more comment here as well that I want to read, and I cannot read the person's name. This is from our no name reading commenter for political reasons, I guess. When I started, I was lacking significantly in confidence to use Japanese with native speakers. So I preferred it if I could find anyone that would talk to me in Japanese and reply in English until I have enough confidence to start doing it the other way around. But with the language barrier up there, that backfired rather quickly. So I came up with this not very new idea. Why don't I talk to a chat bot in English and have it reply in Japanese? So I would chat with it about random stuff and end every sentence with reply in Japanese. Like Aimi said, it was mostly too stiff, teinego and even keigo sometimes, but it helped with building my confidence to the level where I could start talking to it in Japanese and then to Japanese people afterwards. This was regarding, like, usage of AI, and also, yeah. And I've been seeing, like, I get ads for, what'd you say earlier? The Elsa? Is it Elsa?
Elsa.
Yeah, I get ads from that. I get for English. It's the amount of English like learning ads I get is ridiculous. Actually, I'm like, is my English that bad? I literally get one second. It's like, I learned vocab, but I don't know how to use it, and every day I encounter new vocab. I don't know if you know what I'm doing. Yeah.
So
have you considered? I mean, what is my personal thought is? I think I think always just talk. There are language exchange apps, and I'd rather do that a billion times over not than talk to an AI. But maybe that's just like the social component. I feel like being social is just part of what you have to do to speak with people, and like putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation is fine. But I don't know.
まあ確かに、でもな、
うん。
なんか、extremely shy とかさ、ちょっとあんまり対人関係が苦手な人にとっては、まず、なんていうんだろう、ベイビーステップとして、試してみるのもありかなっていうのを思った。で、これで、まあ、ある程度、なんていうの、こんな感じかって分かってきたら、ちょっとハロートークとかさ、まああるじゃん、そのラングジーエクスチェンジアップとかで、実際の人とやってみることでステップアップするいいきっかけにはなるんじゃない？本当に、私、あいうえおしか知らないよっていう人にとってはさ、ちょっと、まあ、チャレンジングでもあるから、ちょっと慣らしてから、そういう、ちょっとハイヤーレベルのコンバーセーションを目指していくみたいなね。
That's what you'd say if you're nice and not a drill sergeant like me. I'm like, no. Here's my thing. You know, either listen more, listen more, get your skills or whatever, and that's fine. But for me, I'm all about, it doesn't matter how shy you are, especially with a lot of people I met, like, ultimately, this is one of those things that doing it makes you more comfortable. And I don't think there's a good way to replicate the actually having some other person be there. I think what's actually happening is, when you're speaking using a chat box, or maybe it is, maybe if it's so real life, like whatever. But I think it's the fact you actually know it's another person, and that's what's causing the anxiety, that you're speaking with another person. I think outside of that, you just have your language ability. And I think as your language ability gets higher, it doesn't remove that anxiety. But I don't know, maybe, I mean, you might be right. Maybe for some people, the fact it sounds human enough convince them they're actually human, but I don't know. It's too dystopian for me. I'm hoping that people don't get the same exact vibes from speaking to an AI robot as they do a human, but yeah, who knows? Shout out to the movie Her, I guess. Have you seen Her?
見た。
Yeah.
ちょっと怖いよね。
Shout out to Her. Yeah. But yeah, thanks so much for the comments. That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us, another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and are just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com and we might respond next episode. Also, consider supporting us on Ko-Fi to get video updates, Discord access, and/or to just lend a hand. And finally, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off. Jenny.